problem.
No problem. All right.
Where are you? Are you based in Jakarta or where are you based?
I am in Jakarta. I live in Jakarta my whole life, so I never went to everywhere. So, I'm kind of have a question for you, Mr. Joe. How long have you been living in Indonesia, actually?
10 years.
10 years?
Ya, ya.
Whoa, that's quite pretty long.
Sudah orang Indonesia, hampir.
Oke, oke, mungkin boleh nih cerita-cerita dikit kenapa pindah ke Indonesia gitu.
Ya. Nah, saya suka Indonesia. Dari awal saya sudah mungkin kapan ya? 1990 kira-kira, 9.000, ya 1990s I already came to
Ah.
Bali and I fell in love with Bali. Ya, cinlok di Bali dan balik lagi, bolak-balik, and then in 10 years ago I moved permanently.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoy living in Indonesia with your partner. I hope Indonesia is
Ya,
a
ya.
great place for you. Oke, lagi ini udah jam 16.20 ya kalau di waktu Indonesia bagian timur. Mungkin kita, bagian tengah ya. Mungkin kita bisa kita lanjut aja atau gimana nih Mr. Joe, atau sembari kita nunggu gitu teman-teman lain untuk.
Bisa, terserah.
Oh, terserah. Oke. So maybe I would like to introduce about green skilling itself. Kita akan langsung aja mungkin ya untuk mulai karena kita juga terkendala dengan durasi ya. Oke, kita mulai aja di mana aku akan menjelaskan sedikit nih tentang green skilling sendiri, di mana for those who doesn't know about green skilling, I would like to share a brief description of green skilling. So green skilling is an initiative aimed to providing support and deeper understanding to owner of a micro, small, medium enterprise, entrepreneurs, startup founders, and employees managing businesses on green strategies and practices, as well as enhancing capabilities and skill in various aspects. The event is planned as a concrete step to strengthen the online presence of UMKM and expand their market reach in continually evolving digital era. And today is our fifth edition of Green Skilling karena kita udah beberapa kali melakukan Green Skilling, sudah sekitar 4 kali. Yang kemarin adalah kita terkait corporate responsibility sosial gitu. Nah, kali ini sendiri kita akan membahas terkait dengan green branding, yang dimana di green branding sendiri ini kita akan membahas juga ada rinciannya ya, understanding green branding, di mana poin pertama kita akan membahas consumer behavior and environmental awareness, yang kedua adalah definition and characteristic of green branding, yang dimana di sini green branding will be presented by Mr. Johannes Weisenberg himself. So, nggak ada pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang lain karena memang sudah ahlinya ini loh untuk membicarakan tentang green branding gitu ya. Oke, nah mungkin untuk hal ini sendiri kita juga udah berbincang-bincang. Nah mungkin kita bisa lanjut aja untuk presentasi kali ya dari Mr. Joe sendiri. Gimana Mr. Joe, sudah siap untuk presentasi atau kita
Siap.
siap? Mantap. Oke, boleh mungkin Mas Iqbal untuk dibantu pemateriannya sendiri. Nah, sembari pematerian juga nih, mungkin ya kita akan sembari pemateriannya kita akan teman-teman boleh untuk langsung menanyakan di chat, di kolom chat ya, dengan format sebagai berikut. Nanti aku akan berikan, jadi kita tidak membuang-buang waktu gitu ya teman-teman. Sebentar ya, aku akan menuliskan. Nah, mungkin sebelumnya aku akan memperkenalkan sedikit deh tentang Mr. Joe sendiri. Boleh nggak Mas Iqbal nih? Kita balik ke slide break sebelumnya nih. Karena aku belum memperkenalkan Mr. Joe nih, teman-teman udah tahu belum nih Mr. Joe siapa sih gitu. Alright, nih aku udah bikin nih. Nanti mungkin Mr. Joe can introduce himself again while presenting. So Mr. Johannes Weisenberg is a founder and CEO of Oxo Group Indonesia. Mungkin yang aku sudah baca, Oxo Group Indonesia ini seperti apa ya, perusahaan properti ya yang memiliki
Yeah.
fokus pada sustainability. Betul? Tak salah.
Yes, more or less.
Oke, nah Mr. Joe sendiri adalah founder dan serial entrepreneur, visionary, lateral thinker, and public speaker with over 25 years of business experiences in the United Kingdom, Australia, Germany, and Indonesia. And he has permanently moved to Bali in 2014 to follow his passion for property and Bali lifestyle. Nah, seperti tadi kita juga udah ngobrol sedikit kapan pindahnya, mungkin sebenarnya tahun 1990 ke Balinya gitu ya. Gitu. gitu. Nah, mungkin kita lanjut nih, udah ke presentasi aja sekalian. Nah, gimana nih untuk Mr. Joe sendiri? Mungkin bisa introduce himself again, terus juga mungkin bisa memperkenalkan OXO Group sendiri sembari presenting. Nah, mungkin Mas Iqbal boleh naikin lagi presenter share screen. Alright. Now the spotlight is your Mr. Joe. I will give you the spot.
Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nama saya Johannes, asli Austria. Saya lahir di Austria, baru saya pindah kuliah di London dan tinggal di London, baru ke Jerman dan Prancis, dan 15 tahun di Australia. Background saya sebenarnya branding dan marketing. I had a branding company in Australia, which we built for 15 years, and then we sold it to a large global media company called WPP, and we became part of this this big conglomerate. And then when I was 40, I decided to leave the marketing and branding world and follow my passion and go to Indonesia. I always loved Indonesia. Saya cinlok di Bali mungkin 20-30 tahun yang lalu sudah, sama Bali ya, bukan sama orang.
Oke,
Dan ya dan ya baru ke Bali, dan di Bali saya mulai passion yang kedua itu property. I call it lifestyle real estate. Kita punya perusahaan sebenarnya dua macam. Satu untuk property development, itu untuk bangun bangunan dan villa dan resort. Dan yang kedua itu perusahaan manajemen. Artinya kalau investor mau beli rumah atau resort, nanti kita manage juga untuk investor biar semuanya hassle free investment, ya. So now I think originally it was about building a company again, as I did for the second time. But what I also realized quickly was I wanted to apply my branding knowledge also to the business. So rather than say, yes, we have a property company, I like it much more to think about it as a real estate lifestyle brand. And I think this is what I've been trying to build over the last, at least over the last 5 years. And yeah, now we are in Bali, and it's been very, very exciting years over the last 3 years, particularly because we have really grown to a point where we can also make some impact and make a difference in many ways, and also have the team to do that. So this is where I am now. I'm really passionate about, I guess, the whole wider, call it more sustainability / conscious living area, for me personally, but also for the business. And that's why I'm very honored to be here today and meet all of you. Should I get straight into the presentation, or do you have any other questions?
Sure. I guess you could proceed to the presentation, Arne.
Okay, let's go to the next slide to just see the content. So, I've been asked to help a little bit or give you my perspective on consumer behavior, the definition of green branding, some examples, benefits, and some strategies. I've actually taken the liberty to structure it slightly different. So I promise I will answer all those questions, but maybe not exactly in that order. What I've done is I try to ask myself, what are the main questions that we get all the time, or that people ask us, and that could be really interesting for, I guess, for all of you. So I've put together 10 questions and answers. So feel free at the end as well to ask more detail, or you can write it down in the chat. Any more details, I'm happy to answer them at the end. Let's go to the first, next. The first big question, and I think it's quite a fundamental question. People talk a lot about branding these days. Businesses have brands. Every startup is a brand. Now, personal branding has become really important. But where does it actually come from? And why? Why do we do branding? So the origin of branding, if you go to the next slide, is actually one that goes back a long way. When you look at those 3 horses, one is brown, one is black, and one is white. How do you know, which one is good and which one is not so good? And this is what basically was the beginning of branding. So if you go to the next slide, I'll just say next the next time so I don't have to talk. So what people did was they put a stamp onto a horse. And it was a hot iron, and that hot iron, it was called branding. And what that did ultimately is, if you go to the next slide, it told something about that horse. So it doesn't necessarily, when I show you two of those horses, and one of them says, Ferrari on it, and the other one says Daihatsu, and I ask you, which horse do you think runs faster of those two horses? Most people, I think they would think, yeah, the Ferrari horse will run faster, correct? Now, the question is, it's actually not so much about the logo or the stamp that's on the horse. It's really about the horse. And that's really important to understand with branding, because people think, oh, if I have a logo, I have a brand, or if I have a product, I have a brand, but that's not really true. In the same way, I can stamp a Ferrari stamp on my horse, but that doesn't mean it runs really fast. So branding is not so much about the stamp, it's much more about the actual horse. So if you have a business or a personal brand and you want to perform some green branding, it's not just like, wearing a green t-shirt. It's really about who are you? Who is it that you are, and what can you actually do? So that's the very first, and it's quite an important point, that it's about the horse and not about the stamp. If you go next. So the next question is really, what actually is a brand? And that's also, I think, there's a lot of misconceptions about that. Many people think, as I said, the moment you have a graphic designer working for you, you're working on a brand. But next, please. If I look at the OXO branding, I've got an image here, I've got a strap line here, and I've got our logo. And this is sort of three parts that belong to our, call it our brand kit that we use. Now, if I just change something here, if you go to the next slide, if I change something here now, I put a different image, I put a different color, does it change my brand? I think it's an important question. And the answer is maybe a little bit, a little bit. It changes three small elements of your brand. But that doesn't mean your brand really has changed, because you're still the same business, you still do the same thing, you still have the same employees, you still do the same thing. So you can use visual elements to evolve your brand, but that doesn't really mean your brand has changed. And the most important thing about that is, if you go to the next slide, it's not really what you think it is, a brand. It is much more what they think it is. So what I mean with they is like your customers, your shareholders, your employees. So you can have the best idea about your brand, but if they think it is different, then your brand is different. So for example, if I think I'm an amazing green brand, but your customers think, oh, they are polluters and they are, don't do anything for the social environment or anything like that, then that's what your brand really is. Just because you believe that doesn't mean your brand is that. So it's very important to understand a brand exists in the customer's mind. It doesn't exist on your product, on your t-shirt, or on your letterhead. Let's go to next. So when you sent me the presentation title and what is green branding, I had to say, I have to be honest, and I felt like there's something wrong with the term green branding. Yeah. And I'll explain to you in very simple ways why I think it's wrong. If you go to the next slide, if you just say there's something like, green branding, that means like I'm trying to brand a business, or I'm trying to brand a person in a green way. But that really would just be an add-on, a bit like what I said before. If I change my logo, or if I change my color palette, or if I start developing new services, or if I hire someone who knows about, say, sustainability or anything like that, that doesn't really mean that would just be an add-on. For me, it's just like the next slide. It's just about branding, really. It's really just about branding. And I think the question shouldn't be, how do we do green branding? The question should be much more like the next slide. What is our brand? So you ask yourself, who am I? What is our brand? And if it happens to be green, if your brand happens to be green, then yes, then you're developing a green brand. But don't look at it as like, we should do some green branding or we should add something to our existing brand. No, your brand is that or not. It's like a person. Either you behave responsibly or you don't. It's not like, oh, I add a responsible element to myself, And I think that's, again, an important point to remember and to understand in terms of language. Let's go next. So the next question is, why do we actually bother? If I'm an entrepreneur and I run a business, why would I bother about branding my business and also branding it with a sort of green touch or with green considerations? There's three very simple answers to that. And the first answer, if you go next, the first answer is very simple. It's because you have to. But what I mean with that is, if your business has to improve the sustainability aspects of the business because the government or other forces force the business to do that, well, then you just have to. If you're a big polluter and you have to, say you're an oil company or you are another big polluter and you have to comply with regulation, you simply have to change. And if your business has to change, your brand should change. So that's the first point. Most people don't have to, so most people don't do it for that reason. The second reason is you want to. I think you might be your leadership team, your shareholders, key people within the business, they naturally have an understanding and a conscious mind, and they really want to do that. And they invest time and funds into that. So that's the second point. This is kind of where we are at OXO. I personally have a passion for it. I personally think it's important. So for me, I want to, and therefore I invest into it. And then the third point is they want us to. What I mean with they, again, is customers. So you might have a fashion label, let's just say, and you don't really care about any of that. You don't have to, you don't really want to, but you're realizing that more and more of your customers are asking you to, hey, where is your product manufactured? Hey, is it sustainable materials? Hey, do you recycle? Hey, where is your workforce employed? How do you treat your workers, etc.? That means they want you to. So if you want to be a good business person, of course, you want to deliver products and services and have a brand that is relevant to your customers. So you have another reason to do that. Ideally, I think in my way is, I think the most powerful combination is, of course, if you don't have to, but you want to, and they want you to. So there's your market who wants it, you want it, and as a result, it's a very powerful combination. Next. So when we say they, what do they want? What do customers really want? So when you talk about trends or directions of where the market is going, I've put down a couple of points and on the next slide, and they are really relevant to our industry. So I'm talking about tourism, lifestyle, real estate industry. Yeah. So this is very different probably when you're talking about, say, I don't know, manufacturing or fashion or retail. It might be quite different. But I think there's definitely a tendency for some of those trends. Now, in terms of our industry, there's the top 10 trends currently are those in that order. So it's actually quite interesting to see, if you go to the next slide, that sustainable travel is a major big priority on an international, on a global scale. People look for that, whether it's actually experiences or whether it's just simple consciousness or whether it's some elements that are built into the hotel experience. People are expecting that, and that is a fact that is backed up by numbers, and it's a major trend. So if that's a major trend, well, maybe as a business owner, I should start thinking about this major trend. The second one, wellness travel. Again, wellness travel is probably not as focused, but it's also very related. Wellness is very closely related to nature. It's very closely linked to personal health, etc. And it's also, of course, indirectly linked to sustainability. The same with slow travel and local travel. People are now much more conscious about how they spend their time. They're prepared to travel less and spend more time in certain destinations. and they want to connect with local places. They don't just want to be a tourist. They want to, feel like a local wherever they go. And then technology and micro adventures are other 2 points. They're indirectly related to this whole subject. Technology can actually help a lot with sustainability, and micro adventures are important because there's things like impact travel or impact tours where people go. We have customers, they come on holiday and they want to participate in a beach cleanup, for example. So you have to really think more than just like, what about my operation or what about my product? But sustainability as a wider thing has become a product in itself. So next question, and I think this is a very important question now for entrepreneurs, for business owners, for startups, for I guess businesses like ours. How do you actually lead that? So if you say you're going through a rebranding project and you're sort of redefining or you're defining who you are and who you want to be relevant in your market and all of that, how is that best led when it comes to a sustainability or a green aspect? If you go to the next slide, the question normally is always, is it a top-down approach or bottom-up approach? So, do you need to have a CEO who says, this is the way we go and everyone will follow? And of course, there's lots of benefits for that. Or it should be more of a grassroots approach where we say, does everyone should be involved? How can we get the team involved? And then the CEO sooner or later will see that it's a good thing. So if I'm a sustainability manager and I'm trying to, build, I guess, a sustainable or conscious or green mindset into the business and into the brand, I think both of those approaches are valid depending on the organization. If you have support from the top down, use it. If you have support from the bottom up, use it. But most likely, it's none of those two in a single way. And I want to quote Ananda, who is also, I think, here on the call today, our sustainability manager. He's come up with a kind of nice concept, which I really like. And on the next slide. And can we go to the next slide? Yeah. And he calls it positive pollution. And positive pollution is kind of a play on words, I guess, on the whole green or sustainability space. But what it really does is, we all know that pollution is everywhere and it goes everywhere. And I think, imagine you take the whole concept and turn it really positively. So the idea is that everyone should be participating in this in one way or the other. And it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. So the idea is really, you want to encourage and excite everyone. And you need to spend time to get everyone involved in one way or the other. And it doesn't really matter how big or how small it is. And you need to, because ultimately this whole area is quite a, on one, it's a rational component, but it's also a very emotional component. So if you can touch the hearts and minds of people and make it relevant to individuals, then it becomes very powerful because they will start to act and they will start to support whatever you're doing. And they will also help to take your brand and to take your business into that direction. Because remember, it's not only, what you write on your brochures or on your website, it's basically what you are and how you behave, how you communicate every day, what your staff say about you, what your leaders say about you. So if you win the hearts and minds of your staff in this area, they will support you and they will support the business and they will act as brand ambassadors for your business. So you want to spread that word like pollution throughout the organization in a very, very positive way. Now, 7 questions. So we're now 93 questions to go. No, only 3 more to go. What are the main benefits of call it branding green or green branding or branding as a whole? Next slide. I think it's a pretty obvious one when you look at it from a really big picture perspective. If you really zoom out, there's a really nice quote by David Brower. He said, he's an environmentalist, and he said, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. So basically, if you have a slightly forward-thinking mindset, if you're looking about the future, you're thinking about your children, you're thinking about the planet in one way or the other, well, that in itself is a good thing. And any business, any person, anyone contributing to that, helps to preserve the beauty of what we have and what we have done. So that's a very obvious one, but people don't really focus on that. Let's be honest, especially when we talk about business, we like balance sheets and we like profit and losses. So that one is nice to have, but it's probably not the highest priority of entrepreneurs or business owners unless they're really, really passionate about it. Next one is social impact. So we're not only talking about the environmental impact, but we're also talking about social impact. Again, it's a very obvious thing to say, hey, it's good to help people. If you have knowledge and you can transfer that knowledge to people who don't have it, that's a good thing. If you have no marginal cost of helping other people, why not do it? So I think it's a very important point, and it's a very, very big benefit. So if you have policy in place, or if you have procedures in place where your business can connect with the local communities, where your people can help and make a social impact in one way or the other, and it doesn't matter how small it is, I think you're doing a good thing, and there are benefits associated with it, which are very obvious. Next. The next one is reputation. And now we're getting closer to the business talk. Every business wants a good reputation, because if you have a good reputation, you can charge more, you have more customers, you attract more customers, you can sell more, etc. So reputation is a very, very important point. And remember what I said before, the brands don't exist on your website, they exist in the hearts and minds of your customers. So if your customers love you for who you are, it is very powerful. And especially when you act in the environmental space, there is a lot of love that you can gain from your customers. So if you as a business owner say, hey, I'm going to do all these things because my customers love me for it, well, that's good. I think I really congratulate that. Even if you don't mean it, I think it's good. So I think brands, if I'm a sustainability manager, I would probably think about the first 2 points, but I wouldn't necessarily talk to my CEO about them as the first point. I would start the conversation here, and I'd say, hey, let's build a power brand. And a power brand should not only have credibility in terms of your products and services, but it should also have credibility on a larger environmental, social, scale. So reputation is very powerful, and it can be measured very easily, and it can be tracked very easily. So it's definitely a point and a major benefit, if you consider that. Next. And now we're talking to the CFO, not only the CEO or the marketing manager. We're talking about efficiencies, and companies, businesses love efficiencies, especially when it comes to cost savings and all of that. And the whole idea around green branding can actually help that, because when you actually brand a business, you set standards. You're telling your customers, this is what we do, and then you have to do it because you said you're going to do it. So for example, for us, when we build a house, we're looking at photovoltaic power, we're looking at smart home systems, we look at green cooling, we look at drinking water filtration, we're looking at green blocks, as in, building materials, waste management, recycling, rainwater catchments, and all of these things. And they not only help us to position our well and create a good reputation, but they actually save money. They save costs. They make things more efficient. I don't have to carry around the water gallon. I just have drinking water from the tap because I have a reverse osmosis system or anything like that. So when you start calculating the actual benefits of that investment, then suddenly you get the ears of everyone in the business, and suddenly it starts to make sense also financially. And then last but not least, and this is probably the one that everyone likes most, which is competitive advantage. Now, what would Tesla be if they would have a combustion engine? They would just be a completely, just another car brand that is out there trying to do the same thing than anyone else. Tesla made a conscious decision to go in a completely different direction and say, we are only going down this path. We are forward thinking. We will not produce combustion engines. We focusing on technology that is connected to the human psyche. It's measurable. It's with the phone in your hand, all the data in your hand, and it's all very, very measurable. And that philosophy has given a massive competitive advantage. Competitive advantage in terms of manufacturing, in terms of branding, in terms of marketing. So it is a major competitive advantage if you have the means to build your whole business around this whole proposition. And this is what Tesla has done. The next slide. We all know Patagonia. They have built a whole business around that brand. It makes a lot of sense because their product exists in the natural environment. And for that reason, they have decided we make this our main point of difference. And this goes all the way through to how we treat our employees, how we communicate to customers, how we recycle products, the fact that we repair products. All of that is deeply built into the business and into the brand. And it becomes a massive competitive advantage. Next. This is a company called Room with a View. It's called Room with a View. It's actually friends of mine, and they run a fashion agency in Europe. And what's really interesting there was, fashion, with the emergence of online purchases has become very, very difficult, especially for distributors. And the company really decided to reposition themselves and decided to completely focus on sustainable brands. So they only distribute sustainable brands like EcoAlf or various other brands. And it helped to reinvigorate the entire business. The business was stale, growth was slow, and with finding a completely new niche that was linked to that and building that brand helped them to position themselves in a completely new way and reinvent the overall business and open up a whole new area of growth. So again, competitive advantage is not just what's to gain, but also it's what's to lose. If you stay back and you don't really change, you might be also amongst the people who are losing out to those who are going with the times and changing. Next. Now, a few more points, and it is just personal points. They are more, I would call it strategies in really, really simple terms. But probably one of the main strategies that I have learned is, I guess we at OXO, we are quite perfectionistic about things. I'm quite ambitious about things. And very quickly, you can have very big dreams and very big visions, but you realize it's a really, really, really long way to go. And it's not easy to implement all the things that you want to implement. So what I recommend is to really start small. So go to the next slide. And when I say start small, I just mean let's just do what we can do very quickly and very easily. So what we did was, I think one of the first points was I hired a sustainability manager, because if you have somebody who is in charge, if somebody who's passionate about it, who will promote it, who will think about plans and strategies, etc., it makes things much, much easier. So I'm very happy to have Ananda as our sustainability manager and for driving this process throughout the business and helping me to really, I guess, see the next steps in this area. But that's not all of that. It's just like then you just start and you start managing your waste. And the way we did it was simply by counting pieces of waste. Ananda was literally talking to the team, how much waste we have and how much and we counted it. How much of it is recycled, how much of it is upcycled, and just start very small. And in the beginning, it's 0% because you haven't thought about it. But then suddenly it's 5% and then it's 10%. And, a year later, you might be fully managed. You might have fully managed waste. So it's about small steps. The same things is about how you educate your team and shaping the minds. The same things is if you're looking at climate and power consumption. If you're looking at, general operations, plastic gallons, soaps, housekeeping practices, or getting team involved in some global days such as beach cleanups or other global initiatives. So it doesn't matter what you do as long as you do it. And the more you do it, the more exciting it becomes, and the bigger it becomes. So don't expect everything is perfect from the first day. Start small and take it step at a time. The last but not least, measure and partner. I think there's two very important points. If you go to the next slide, I really recommend you start measuring what you're doing. It doesn't really matter how you measure it, what you measure, whether you follow, some codes or you follow international guidelines or systems. For me, it doesn't really matter as long as you measure and you can see that you're better than the next day or the day before. So it's really about set some basic measurements in place, look at some basic areas, and then start to track them, whether it's weekly or monthly. Find out what's been, and that way you find progress and you can communicate that progress, and people will be very happy about that progress. The other thing is, next slide, is to find other people who have the same mindset. This is one of our major partners. It's called Nuanu Creative City. It's a city based around nature, education, wellness. It's got components around art and creativity. And it's really about celebrating freedom of expression, but the sustainability aspect is throughout the whole project. 70% of their area will remain green and will create an environment for people to meet and to enjoy. And we decided to partner with Nuanu Creative City. And by having this partnership, we're exchanging, we are working together, we're supporting each other, but we have the same vision. So when you have a partner who has the same vision, it is much easier to do the things that you're doing because you're having someone to exchange and to support and to share resources with. So partners with the same visions are really, really powerful, and I highly recommend to look out for them. Finally, 10, next slide, keep it simple. I think, with all respect to, the goals that, organizations set, they are really good. And of course, they have to cover a lot of space and a lot of spectrums around the world. The United Nations goals, for example, here, if you go to the next slide, we've got our 17 major goals, and they become a really good framework for, starting your sustainability journey or your green branding journey. But for me personally, I think it becomes by far too complicated and very difficult, for entrepreneurs like us who can only focus on a few things because the resources are limited. So what I recommend is you start wide like this, you take a framework like that, and then you just go and say, what is really important to us? What can we do? What can we achieve? Where can we have success stories quickly? And try to focus on a few of those things, keep it very simple. And this is what we've done, on the next slide. We have been very simple, and we boiled it down to 4 very simple areas. One of them was emissions. So our objective for 2030 is to have 0 emissions. Number 2 is 0 waste. Number 3 is education. And number 4 is community impact. So this is what I think suits our business. It suits our environment. It's easy to understand. I can remember those 4 things quite easily when I talk to people. I can't remember all 17 items of the UN, direction. So it's important that you can keep it in your mind, that people understand it, your staff understand it, your CEO understands it, and then you can actually start delivering against any of those. So I would not pick more than 4 or 5 to start with, maybe even 3 or even 1, and say, this is our focus, this is how we position our brand, and this is what we will be really good at. So keep it simple, I think, is number 10. Now I have another one, the bonus point, number 11. And then is make it fun and make it sexy. I think there's a lot of green warriors out there who are very passionate about it. And I think this is really, really good, but it doesn't resonate with a lot of people. So I think it's very important that whatever you do becomes approachable and people understand it, people want to connect it, people like it. And usually, if it's fun, if it's engaging, people will like it. Or if it looks really good, if it's sexy and it's, it's professional, then it will help you much, much more to build a brand in the green space and to make your brand a powerful representation of what we're all trying to do on a bigger level. And that's it, I think, from my end. Our mantra, imagine more, of course, in every area, imagine more, there's always new ways. And I hopefully this presentation inspired you a little bit in one way or the other. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Joe. I myself is quite like have a new insight from green branding itself. And how it's not just about a green. You know, we have to like penetrate our idea of sustainability and our idea of our brand to the society itself. You know, how they prospect our idea of our brand and etc. I mean, like, so there's like quite insight. I did actually write it myself because it's quite a knowledge for me actually myself. So the thing that I kind of like intrigue myself is the collaboration. You know, when we have business, we have to collaborate with the society and then also the karyawan juga gitu. Kita harus bersama-sama
Benar.
berkolaborasi di dalam suatu perusahaan tersebut dan masyarakat gitu ya. Alright, get it.
Ya, itu penting sekali karena kalau branding sebenarnya bukan kayak logo aja,
Yes.
brandingnya harus marketing pasti, branding pasti, tapi juga culture itu penting sekali, organizational culture. Karena misalnya kalau customer service tidak suka ya itu juga part of the brand kan. Artinya branding it's holistic. And that means also if you do green branding, it has to be holistic. It's not just about your color palette, it's also about your product. If you have a really bad product that is environmentally really bad, well, you will have a big problem to do green branding, I mean, because, the product is part of who you are.
Yes.
So, we have to be very careful. Otherwise, it's just wearing a green T-shirt and, and that doesn't really, and we live in a very connected world, which means people find out very quickly, if you are basically, just sort of making things up and not really acting on it, people find out very quickly and people, talk. And that can be actually backfiring for your brand. It can be working against you.
I get it. So yeah, we need to collaborate and everyone should participate on our business, right? Like the whole idea.
Everyone needs to participate. It's really important. Make it positive pollution.
Yes, like Ananda said, the strategy from Ananda has a big impact on your business actually. Maybe Ananda could, talk about the pollution positive
Yeah.
pollution.
Get Ananda.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity given to me to add up what Johannes has already explained before. So I have to explain it in Indonesia.
It's fine, I guess, in Indonesia.
Okay, right. Jadi pertama yang harus kita miliki untuk memainstream sebuah green branding itu sendiri adalah satu leadership vision yang mana tanpa Pak Jo, tanpa visi dari Pak Jo, di OXO pun tidak akan ada sustainability yang bisa seperti sekarang ini ya Pak Jo ya. Di awal saya join OXO, resistensi internal itu luar biasa besar. Do you still remember, Joe, how big the resistance facing us? There were only both of us. Jadi di awalnya cuma saya dan Pak Jo yang memainstream sustainability ini. Jadi banyak sekali resistensi dari dalam mempertanyakan kenapa harus meng-hire orang untuk mengerjakan sustainability, apa sih pentingnya sustainability, apa iya dengan adanya green branding orang akan membeli produk dan service kita itu. Yang kedua yang paling penting adalah how to engage our people. Leave no one behind. So it aligns with our international platform, right? Leave no one behind. Also never leave no one behind. We engage everyone here. So mulai dari staff maintenance kami, housekeeping, marketing, bahkan sales pun juga kita beri sustainability induction, sustainability training, bahkan untuk integrasi sustainability untuk operation dan juga selling point itu sudah kita lakukan. Mereka sudah menawarkan untuk produk-produk kita dan ternyata banyak sekali calon investor dan juga investor itu yang memang tertarik, memang mereka sengaja mencari properti dan juga service yang mengedepankan prinsip-prinsip sustainability. Ya, gitu.
Thank you so much Kak Ananda.
Terima
kasih banyak. Jadi mungkin memang untuk the idea of sustainability itself kita nggak bisa memiliki sendiri gitu loh. Kita harus sama-sama edukasi gitu ya. Semua orang tentang sustainability biar kita sama-sama juga bisa menjadi tonggak dari sebuah brand ini ya, sama-sama kita tahu apa sih sebenarnya sustainability itu seberapa pentingnya, how is it important the sustainability for our band and the society and the business and the government, everyone should know about the sustainability because we live for the future, right? That's the whole
Benar.
point. Okay,
But
so
I think one important point to add here is, you see, it's not people resisting sustainability or they're resisting Ananda or anyone. This is not it. They're simply resisting change. You know,
yeah.
and if you have done things in a certain way and now we're asking you to do something else, that's human behavior. Any human resists change. Because we're comfortable with that. So we should not take it personal. You know, if someone says, why do I need that? It's not because they don't want it or they don't like it. It's just because they don't know and they have not done it before. So that's really important to understand, I think.
Okay, I see. Yeah, because we also people like doesn't like change. We
Yeah,
like to
benar.
live in a uncomfortable live and something like that.
Exactly.
Okay. So onto the next section, we have photo session first, and then we gonna next onto the Q&A session. Oke, jadi kita akan foto sesi dulu kali ya untuk saat ini. Nanti kita lanjut dengan sesi pertanyaan. Oke, teman-teman. Nah, mungkin untuk sesi ini kita bisa nih untuk on cam dulu teman-teman semua ya. Jadi kita akan foto bersama-sama dulu. Aba-abanya dari aku, yang akan foto adalah Mas Kristo dari admin Lindungi Hutan. Alright. So okay, let's capture this moment. Gimana teman-teman, apakah sudah siap? Wah, sudah cantik-cantik sekali, sudah ganteng-ganteng sekali. Teman-teman on cam. Oke, lagi bisa on cam mungkin sembari kita nunggu ya. Jadi kita akan foto dulu. Mas Kristo mungkin boleh untuk di pinnya dilepas dulu, jadi kita bisa kelihatan siapa aja yang on cam. Coba, oke. Oh, ada yang minta LinkedIn-nya Mr. Joe, mungkin.
Hah?
Ada loh.
Nanti saya kasih, Mbak.
Nah, ada tuh nanti dikasih. Atau buka aja langsung website Okso, karena di situ ada, aku lihat loh. Oke, nah boleh nih. Di screenshot kali ya, udah siap semuanya. Oke, ada lagi yang, wah, ada Mbak Nur. Ini kita mau screenshot aja atau masih nunggu nih Mas, kira-kira?
Screenshot aja nggak apa-apa.
Nggak apa-apa, screenshot aja. Ya. Oke, aba-aba dari aku ya, Mas Kristo. 1, 2, 3. Sudah? Dari Mas Kristo sudah? Amankah? Boleh mungkin? Oh, ada lagi on cam. Oke, ulang dulu ya. 1, 2, 3. Oke, alright. The photo session is done. Okay, we follow by the next session is Q&A session. Mungkin Mas Iqbal boleh untuk menaikkan share screen untuk pertanyaan-pertanyaannya. Oke, ini ada beberapa pertanyaan yang mungkin aku juga udah dapat dari di pendaftaran yang pertama. Nah, ini mungkin nanti ada beberapa pertanyaan lagi. Aku mungkin mendahulukan yang join ya kali ya, pertanyaan-pertanyaan join. Yang pertama ada dari Kak Aliando. And the question is, what are the challenges of implementing green building? So, mungkin aku bisa nanya juga ke Mr. Joe, kita mau kolektif dulu pertanyaannya atau langsung jawab aja seperti apa kira-kira Mr. Joe nyaman.
Terserah yang
Terserah. Oke.
Bisa langsung jawab kalau lebih terserah.
Oke. Mungkin dari Kak Aliando dulu, bisa mungkin dari Mr. Joe langsung dijawab.
Oke. So saya langsung jawab yang tadi atau ada yang baru?
Nggak apa-apa,
Karena di sini beda, kan?
dijawab aja. Langsung dijawab aja Mr. Joe, nanti selanjutnya aku akan bacakan kembali.
So pertanyaan tadi untuk green building ya, challenges for green building?
Yes, about what are the challenges of implementing green building?
Okay, I mean the challenges from our end, yeah, being a property developer and management company, the obvious one is always costs. You know, people, you know, you can do everything if you don't have to worry about costs. So that is one. But I think the key is to get over the challenge. You know, the moment you start find ways where costs are not the driver, then the challenges become different, and every other challenge is much easier, or it's better. It's good challenges to have. So what it means is when you're speaking to someone in this space, don't try to have a conversation about costs, because that is always going to be tricky. What we are doing, for example, now is we're working with solar panel partners where we can offset the costs onto their balance sheet, which means that they will retain the asset and we will pay as we go along. So that way we can implement, say, for example, green power or solar power without affecting the costs. The other thing is people think, implementation of, I guess, sustainable activities always cost money. There's a lot of things you can do that don't cost money, or that can be amortized very quickly, meaning you get your money back very quickly. Sprinkler systems, for example. If you have cross ventilation, I mean, there's a lot of things when you build that they can be considered, and it's just a question of time and starting somewhere. I really recommend do your own research, speak to people who know, and just start somewhere. And you will be surprised how easy it actually is. Try to get away from the cost question and try to focus on the things that can be done fast and easily. And then slowly you build and start implementing.
Okay, so that's the answer from Mr. Joe. So how is it, Kak Aliando? Is it clear about the answer itself? Hello, Kak Aliando. Okay, I think we move on to the next question. It's from Kak Nur Komariah. All right. There's two questions about it. Okay. The first question is how to make an effective the green strategy as our branding and marketing business feature. And the second one is how to ensure that green branding became competitive advantage and achievable towards sustainable world. So how is it, Mr. Joe? Oh, Miss.
Okay. Very good questions. How to make an effective green strategy as our branding in the market in the future. So again, what I said before is I think the question is not how to make a green strategy. The question is more like how to make a brand strategy. It's really as simple. So you should be focusing on your brand and use any tools or any processes that you use for branding. It's exactly the same. The only question you have to ask yourself is, do I have to, do I want to, or do they want to? Exactly as I said earlier. So if any of those three questions or answers is a yes, that means you should build your brand. You should build sustainability into your brand. And the easiest way to do it is, I mean, it depends what model you use, but let's just say your brand is made up of, 4 main pillars or 5 main pillars. You make sure that one of those pillars reflects your sustainability strategy. So it's an effective and an integral part of your brand. It cannot be an afterthought. It cannot be a thing that is, just a color palette or something on the side. It has to be part of your brand strategy. So when people talk about it, they remember it's one of those 5 pillars or 3 pillars or whatever you have that helps to define your brand. So if you don't want to, or if you don't have to, or if you don't need to because your customers don't care, well, then I don't see a reason why you should build it in, The second question, how do you make it a competitive advantage? And I think that is a much more difficult one because it's really about your, the deep business model. You have to build that not only into your branding and into your product, but really into your business model. And I think that's when you look at brands like Tesla, when you look at brands like Patagonia, like I said before, they have it deeply built into the business model. And the business model is actually what differentiates them. So it's not, again, one of those things on the side. It has to be really deeply built into the business. And unless you have that support, you will not be successful.
See, so like we cannot only touch the surface, but we have to really penetrate inside the idea itself. Is it right?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's basically, say for example, you're a fashion manufacturer, your clothing manufacturer and distributor or retailer, or say you have a clothing brand. Now, if of course you can say, okay, those clothes are made out of, recycled materials or we print on recycled paper or whatever. Yeah, that's fine. But that's not a competitive advantage. That's just a small little tactical thing that you're doing. If you like, say, EcoAlf, who has built a business around sustainability, around upcycling and, around, you know, how can you use waste to create product? That's a business model question. And that is a real competitive advantage, especially when you start building infrastructure around that. You know, if you have, I don't know, fishermen around the world who give you their rubbish, and you have thousands and thousands of them, and you recycle that into clothing, that's a huge competitive advantage, but that requires, you know, a business model to support it.
I see, I get it. So maybe we're gonna move on to Mbak Nur. Kak Nur, are you there? Halo Kak Nur.
Halo, halo Mbak Dara, I'm here.
Okay, so how
Hi,
is it?
Nur.
Maybe you can give a feedback on the question itself, atau mungkin bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa. Halo Kak Nur, mungkin boleh untuk feedbacknya dari jawabannya.
Yeah, I think I'm just thinking how to make and ensure about green branding as an how to building awareness on lifestyle, maybe on how to make an effective is our product, maybe. And then I think this is more to challenge of us to how developing, to
Yeah.
develop our product in
What
green
is your product?
branding
What is your
market.
product?
No, our product is in coal mining industry, so this is so difficult to make it happen in around us because we have
Okay.
many challenges.
I understand.
We
I
have
understand.
more policy about maybe carbon capture stock and etc. But this is not effective. But we have to try to make a valuable for us
Okay.
and
I
building it.
understand. I understand. I think it's a big challenge, especially in your industry. I completely understand. I think my recommendation would be to
Yeah.
find an area where you can really easily make a difference. You know, I guess in terms of your core product, it's going to be very difficult. But there might be
Yeah.
other areas. Say, for example, you know, I guess mines are all over, you know, remote areas. So how can you actually make an impact in remote areas? Like, for example, for us, it's not just about, I guess, environmental sustainability, but also social sustainability. So how do you make that? So you focus on other areas that are low-hanging fruit, and you build them. I give you a very good example. There's a beach club in Bali, which maybe all of you know, which is called Potato Head. And when you look at what they're doing is they could do anything really in terms of sustainability, but they started to really focus on waste. And that was an area where they felt like, you know, really strong about and where it can make a difference. You know, the building is still made out of concrete and, you know, I don't know how much power they consume, but for sure they're working on all of that, but they're trying to own one area and be really strong in one area. So maybe that's a way for you, you know, to say, for example, you know, I don't know, social impact, or it might be education, or it might be any other area. And maybe that's where you can really, really build your brand from.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. I want to start it like in my around us about maybe for CSR or corporate sustainability to make how to branding awareness for our product. Yeah, this is like
yeah, build it into the brand,
yeah,
you know.
this is like focus on our brand and then how to make it competitive advantage in market for the business future. So thank you, Mr. Joe. I think it is so insightful for me to and inspiring me to how to make it valuable and to start it from now.
Thank you, Mbak Nur. Thank you.
Yes, nice to meet you here.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, maybe I would like to ask Mr. Joe, should we proceed to the next question, or
As you
because
want.
as you want? Okay, maybe this is the last question, all right? From Ranga, from International Animal Rescue, how to balance green branding with budget spending? So, Mr. Joe could answer maybe.
That's a good question. I don't know if I know the answer to that. I think it's a very good question. I mean, from our end, for example, you know, I think the easiest way to do it is, again, as I said before, is to start small. You know, you start to get a budget allocated, and it doesn't matter how small it is and how big it is, Because I always believe that if you have constraints and you set your constraints very clearly, you become very creative in those constraints. So for example, if you have a budget of X for this year, then you know, that's it. You don't have to think about, you don't have to talk about budget anymore because you know what it is. And then you try to maximize as much as you can within this budget. And then you try to create as much impact as you can within this budget. And ideally, you prove a case with that. And then if you can prove a case with that, you can then increase your budget. So it's, but you know, I think I always say, and I think it's a very important point, is people always focus on resources. You know, they focus on budgets, how much money they need, and you know, and then if they don't have them, they say, I can't do it because I don't have the resources. I always say people should focus on resourcefulness. You know, so rather than focus on the resources, take the resources, lock it, accept it, and then be as resourceful as you can to make the maximum with the given resources that you get. And if you do that well, you will get more resources, guaranteed.
Okay, how is it? Where's the question? So we need to make a bit of our resourcement, is it?
I think it's 2 steps.
Oh,
Don't focus too much on, you know, trying to get bigger budgets and all that. Work with what you have and maximize everything that within your budget. And
yes.
then you maximize your branding opportunities or your product development opportunities or whatever you do under this budget. And really focus on that. And you have 1 year to focus on that until you do your next budget. And I guarantee you, if you're doing a good job, you will get more budget. But don't complain about a lack of resources and you know, and you know, and do nothing because you know, maybe you didn't get the budget that you wanted.
Okay, I see, I get it. So how is it, Kak Rangga? Maybe you could give some feedback about the question itself. Hello, Kak Rangga? Okay, I guess it's already clear. So maybe I think that's all the question because it already 4:21 in Jakarta and maybe in Bali already 5:21.
No problem, no problem.
It's quite too long. All right. So maybe we're gonna move on to the next session, which is we're gonna pick some best question. Maybe Mr. Joe could pick someone who asked the best question from.
I'm easy. Anyone you guys choose from the chat?
Okay, I see. I think mungkin Mbak Nur kali ya. Kita kunci untuk pertanyaannya kepada Mbak Nur. Mungkin bisa kita tuliskan di share screen untuk Mas Iqbal. Because we have some some announcement actually about our product itself. Wait, all right. Wait, okay. Okay. Okay, I think I would. Okay, maybe I would like to thank you to the all participant that already asked some question because karena pertanyaan-pertanyaan juga sebenarnya insightful ya untuk kita juga, untuk teman-teman yang udah join juga. Mungkin kalau misalkan ada pertanyaan lagi terkait dengan OXO Group ataupun dengan terkait Mr. Joe sendiri, mungkin bisa untuk ke LinkedIn ya Mr. Joe. Gimana Mr. Joe?
Ya, sudah ada di sini. Ananda sudah kirim di chat.
Oke.
Yang di LinkedIn ya.
Yes. Sudah. Jadi teman-teman boleh banget connect langsung ke LinkedIn-nya Mr. Joe. Atau mungkin buka juga untuk OXO Group Indonesia buat websitenya dilihat-lihat nih. Mungkin teman-teman tertarik nih ya. Karena beberapa yang mendaftar juga teman-teman juga dari bisnis gitu ya. Oke.
Dan kalau ada orang masuk mau ke Bali, tolong hubungi Ananda. Silakan mampir. Kita di Canggu. Teman-teman pasti bisa di welcome.
Itu berarti kantornya tuh di Canggunya ya, Mr.
Canggu
Joe?
ya.
Okay, alright, I see. Okay, maybe mungkin Mas Iqbal boleh share screen untuk pemenangnya. Kita akan mengumumkan pemenang best question-nya. Selamat untuk Mbak Nur Komariah karena telah memenangkan pertanyaan terbaik. Nah, untuk ini Mbak Nur sendiri boleh langsung chat aku atau chat admin Lindungi Hutan untuk nomor teleponnya dan juga alamatnya ya. Terima kasih Mbak Nur partisipasinya telah menanya dan sangat insightful ya pertanyaannya sekali gitu. Oke, maybe kalau misalkan dari Mr. Joe sendiri memiliki keterbatasan waktu, sebenarnya nggak apa-apa juga, karena aku akan menyampaikan beberapa announcement aja sih sebenarnya terkait dengan lindungi hutan sendiri dan lain sebagainya gitu. Oke, mungkin aku akan gimana Mr. Joe? Mungkin stay di sini atau gimana nih Mr. Joe?
Maybe I can have 5 more minutes. It's okay.
Okay. This is just about the last session is just about announcement from us, so it's fine if you have.
Okay, well then I leave you to it. It was very nice to have you all. Terima kasih semua ya untuk dengar dan mudah-mudahan stay in touch and all the best.
Terima kasih banyak Mr. Joe karena ini benar-benar insightful sekali. Terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih.
Oke, untuk kelas sessionnya sendiri, aku cuma ada beberapa pengumuman aja sih sebenarnya, dan di mana di sini terkait dengan rawat bumi gitu ya, dari rawat bumi sendiri dilindungi hutan. Nah, kita juga punya sertifikat sendiri untuk teman-teman ya. Jadi teman-teman yang mau link sertifikatnya boleh langsung aja klik di link tersebut. Nih aku akan kirimkan juga linknya. Jadi kalau untuk di grup sendiri sebenarnya kita tidak mengirimkan gitu ya untuk link sertifikatnya, tapi ada di InZoom-nya. Jadi teman-teman boleh mungkin untuk diklik aja linknya. Oke, aku akan kirimin sebentar ya. Wait, oke. Ini mungkin linknya agak error sedikit. Sebentar teman-teman nih. Oke, ini untuk linknya. Jadi teman-teman bisa langsung aja klaim sertifikatnya di link tersebut. Nanti setelahnya kita akan bikinkan sertifikat lalu kita kirimkan lagi ke grup Green Skilling. Oke, teman-teman. Nah, mungkin langsung aja ke next slide-nya Mas Iqbal ya. Ini kita juga punya annual report di mana teman-teman bisa langsung unduh dan lihat annual report kita ya, teman-teman. Ini terkait dengan apa aja sih yang udah dilakukan oleh Lindungi Hutan dan aktivitas lainnya sebagai transparansi. Jadi teman-teman bisa langsung untuk melihat link tersebut. Kemudian ada juga terkait dengan rawat bumi. Nah, kita punya, nah ini mungkin bisa langsung di-share screen aja. Nah, rawat bumi sendiri, nah ini teman-teman bisa langsung juga untuk klik link-linknya tersebut ya. Bentar ya, aku sembari mengirimkan karena keterbatasan orang ya untuk hal ini gitu. Nah, ini teman-teman bisa langsung lihat ya untuk link-linknya, link dari annual report, rawat bumi dan lain sebagainya. Karena rawat bumi sendiri kita menyajikan beberapa menu-menu yang bisa teman-teman bisnis untuk join bersama gitu ya. Ada konservasi pemeliharaan gajah, kemudian konservasi mangrove, dan juga kita dapat melepaskan tukik-tukik dan lain sebagainya. Seperti itu ya teman-teman. Nah, mungkin kita juga udah melebihi waktu batas sih, sebenarnya kita selesai jam 4.15, cuman nggak apa-apa. Nah, terima kasih banyak nih teman-teman yang udah join, karena keberadaan kalian ini sangat sangat membantu kita sekali. Semoga apa yang kita sampaikan tadi dan Mr. Joe sampaikan atau Okso sampaikan dapat menjadi sebuah insight teman-teman. Nah, sekali lagi terima kasih banyak atas kehadirannya dan meluangkan waktu di weekend ini. Sampai jumpa teman-teman. Nah, boleh untuk teman-teman langsung aja mungkin dari Mas Kristo untuk di end meetingnya. Terima kasih sekali lagi teman-teman.